Welcome to Breathe In, Scream Out, a podcast for feeling it all, one breath and scream at a time. I'm Kari Healy, your guide through this sacred mess called life. Here in this podcast, we'll feel everything. We'll cry, we'll laugh, we'll scream, and maybe scream again. Let's get into it. Welcome to Breathe In, Scream Out. I'm your host, Kari Healy. Today, I am bringing you a very special guest episode with my Reiki teacher and practitioner, Kari Buzewski. Kari is a certified Reiki Master and teacher, a Shamanic Healer, and a healthy boundaries coach. Kari is one of the first people I ever did a Reiki session with, and she is the first and only person I've ever worked with as a Shamanic Healer. She's a Shamanic Healer and practitioner, and there's a reason for that, and I'm sure you'll understand why in this upcoming episode. She is full of so much wisdom, knowledge, empowerment. She's so grounded, relatable, and kind of helps take the mystery out of what Reiki is. I think a lot of people still wonder, struggle, question what Reiki is, how it's effective. And there certainly is a magical element to it, but more than anything else, in this episode, you'll hear about what Reiki is, how it can help you, how healing is growing and change, and everything in between. We'll talk healthy boundaries, we'll talk shamanic work, we'll talk about grief, and all the spots in our lives where we can simplify and just understand what energy is and how we can have better energetic boundaries with not only others, but with ourselves as well. Before we get into the episode, we'll start how we always do, with a big scream, a sigh, a yell, whatever it is you need today. So wherever you are, whether you're seated at home, in your car, on the subway, just taking a moment for yourself here, maybe closing your eyes if that's possible, and just feeling your seat, your feet underneath you. We'll take a few rounds of a natural breath, using our inhale and our exhale just to bring some presence to our body. Before we invite in some sound, we're just going to take a deep inhale through the nose, lift our shoulders up towards our ears. On an exhale, just roll the shoulders down and back. Return to your normal breath. We'll get ready for our big scream, sigh, yell, whatever it is you need today, whatever energy you're releasing or making space for. Take a deep inhale through your nose. Deep exhale, make some sound out.
Okay.
Maybe flutter your lips a little bit. Rock your head from side to side. Start to bring some presence back into your body. Slowly crack open your eyes. And we will get into today's episode with Kari. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Kari, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait.
So the first question I start with is, what are you screaming about right now?
So many things really related to self-care. But in particular, I think really reclaiming our power and our energy back to ourselves. So really looking at where we are leaking energy, getting involved in things that are draining us and not feeling fulfilling, and really identifying it and bringing all these kind of leaks into check and really reclaiming your power.
And I'm so excited to get into all things boundaries with you, because you certainly are the boundary queen. You've definitely helped me see the importance of them, not just for self, but with others as well, and how it aids to all our healthy relationships. But first and foremost, I think a question I always get, I'm sure you get, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, is, what is Reiki? I think there's a
Yes.
lot of confusion, misconception, this idea often, maybe times it's a little unattainable in explanation. So I'd love to hear your foundational explanation of it.
Yeah, so Reiki is primarily what I offer. I also offer shamanic healing, and I'm a boundaries coach. And boundaries are actually prevention. I discovered eventually for my own life and others of needing all this healing work. It connects to this energy management and reclaiming that back to yourself. Reiki is energy healing. And so it's this invisible world that we're feeling and sensing all the time. And we're really learning in Reiki to balance and heal the 7 main chakras. So what are chakras? They're part of your energy body, your energy field, and they're pipes. And they essentially send out energy to other people, places when you express yourself. And then you're receiving energy into these pipes. So you're receiving energy from people and places, hopefully that is fortifying and positive. That's the goal. So one thing that gets highlighted when I work with people learning about your energy body is, what are you taking in? And do you have discernment about that, which again connects to boundaries. So if boundaries are your limits or your no's, we have to get comfortable doing that so we're not taking in negativity from people, places, the world. So Reiki practitioners are essentially cleaning these pipes. We're literally looking in and evaluating the energy that's present at each chakra point. And we're seeing, okay, is there past trauma that's lodged here and that energy stuck? It's a lot about stuck energy that we can identify and move. And that connects to processing. So it is very hard for us to fully process all of our life experiences that may have impacted us. And so Reiki practitioners are looking for those energies or frequencies, oftentimes emotional, and helping people digest. It would be like digesting food so it moves through the system. That's very valuable. The other thing that's really interesting is so often we pick up energies from other people and they're not serving us. They're weighing us down. And so this connects to boundaries as well. We want to connect with people, but not enmesh or attach in a way that energies are leaking back and forth. So we all know what it feels like to be a sponge and pick up someone's anger or frustration or grief or anxiety. We can feel that. You can feel it across the room, even with a stranger. So we're really learning to clean. It'd be like taking a shower daily to clean off these energies that are absorbed or generated through the self, through the mind, through the belief systems that aren't serving you.
Thank you for getting into that for us. And for anyone who doesn't know, probably not many people because I talk about you all the time. I started working with Kari probably, I guess it had to be like 2018 is when I came to you. And I think what resonated with me so much is my over-analytical, anxious mind, always trying to pick apart, make math of everything. That's something I say a lot that you taught me. We don't need to make math of it all the time. Things just are what they are, especially when it comes to energy. But part of the reason why I think I was so drawn to working with you as a practitioner and now my teacher as well is because you make everything so relatable and digestible. And
Thank you.
there is a part of it where the divine and spirit, of course, is involved, but these ideas of our energy as an energetic piping system, or just something that when we first started working together that really kind of blew my mind was the realization, oh yeah, I am giving out energy all the time. Not only am I giving it out, I'm picking it up. And I think sometimes in these spiritual practices or healing modalities, we like to make things extra complicated. And I always appreciate how much you're able to make it digestible, like I said, understandable and relatable in a way that helps our monkey mind make sense of exactly what's going on too.
Thank you for that. Yes, my intention is fully to speak in a grounded way. I actually say it's mechanics. It's quite mechanical. So I think people think, the energy world as this abstract thing that maybe you have to be a certain kind of, extra sensitive or psychic person to understand. But no, you're feeling things all day long and processing that. And your body will even react, and send signals, a tight stomach or an uncomfortable feeling. You're picking up energy, or your body relaxes. You're picking up the energy. So I needed it to be understood in a grounded way for myself. There's a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan that I highly recommend. It's amazing. And she was a scientist. She was an astrophysicist. So talk about really grounding it in our reality. And she did such a great job of explaining. I stumbled across this book very young. I think I was 18, and I started seeing auras around people. I didn't know what that was. That was kind of my gateway into all this, coupled with chronic pain from a car accident when I was 16. That was how I started to seek. And so I did all the traditional therapies to get myself out of pain, and I hit roadblocks. They didn't work. And so I was kind of forced to look at alternative methods of healing. And Reiki was the last thing I found. It actually took me 7 years. It was a very long journey. And I'm so grateful for it. It was the first thing that really, made a difference in my life. And I started to understand myself as a being. So this is not just work for people who are on a quote unquote spiritual journey. This really is for everyone. Everyone is an energetic being. And I say we have to kind of know how to operate the car, or else we're always feeling apprehensive, frustrated, out of control. It's just anxiety provoking. So back to Hands of Light, when I saw auras for the first time, and quite frankly, I was scared. I had no idea what they were, what this meant. Was something wrong with my eyes? I didn't know. I went to the library. This is dating me. I'm in my mid-40s. So this was back in the 90s, and there was no internet available to Google auras. I go to the library. There are 4 books that are available, and I'm attracted to Hands of Light. And it was incredible to have that grounded explanation, but also mixed with, the spiritual components and the case studies of her performing these amazing healings through the energetic field, whether people were struggling emotionally, or whether they were struggling to conceive, or struggling with, a relationship. It was very exciting, motivating, and I knew that was my path. And so I continued to research, and eventually, after seeking everything else, the self-healing books, the acupuncture, the supplements, I found a Reiki practitioner. They didn't know what Reiki was. And when I met her, she had that book, Hands of Light, on her shelf. And I thought, oh, if this is not a sign, I don't know what is. And I told her, I've read this book. It was really inspiring. And I remember whispering to her, I see the auric field. And she said, I do too. And it was the first person I connected to that could see what I could see and relate. And there are many of us out there, but it was kind of a closely guarded secret in my life for a long time. And so she said, yes, what's described in that book is essentially Reiki. Reiki is a Japanese healing technique, but essentially it's all the same. We are healing and changing the energy body, because at its core, healing is just change. That's what healing is. So we have this opportunity down here to grow and evolve. I think that's really the main point of being on the earth plane. And healing, which is change, directly connects to growth. So we can repattern ourselves through energy healing, through Reiki. We can offload what's not ours and return to our more authentic state. It's just such a powerful thing to know about and understand. And that's why I did extra certification to teach classes, so I could teach people how to heal themselves. Because you're your best healer. You know yourself and your life experience is the best. And you're with yourself 24/7. And healers have been so, crucial in my life. But on the other side of the coin, I really needed to take that empowerment step and say, okay, can I do some of this for myself? And that was what really changed my life.
Thank you for sharing all that. And that was the first book you recommended to me as well. Still have it on my bookshelf. It's incredible. And I think anyone listening to this episode so far who's taken my classes or works with me is like, wow, this sounds like what Katie is saying. And again, I take so much of my inspiration and wisdom from Kari, and I'm so grateful for that. And also, I just want to backtrack just slightly. You started talking about what led you to Reiki, and I think everyone's stories are so fascinating of how we come to the thing that we never thought we would do and now are spending our life doing. So, and I think it's inspiring for other folks to hear as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about not just what led you to Reiki, but how this path kind of unfolded for you, where now this is, for over a decade, your full-time work. It's what you do. Reiki, Shamanic Healer, your boundaries work, your business coaching.
Yes.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I think it starts with just acknowledging that I was always a highly sensitive person. I was hyper aware of people's emotional states. I tended to absorb that really readily. I was a deep feeler. And so it's overwhelming is the truth. And we don't really have any skills to management. There's a managing process to it. And our parents teaching us how to manage that, our school systems teaching us no. And a lot of it is emotional. We have a mental body, a physical body, an emotional body, but the work that I do with people largely ends up coming back to the impact of events emotionally or relationships emotionally and how that affects our beings and our lives. So growing up as a sensitive, I felt oftentimes overwhelmed and anxious with the amount of energy I was taking in, quite frankly. So it just feels like your satellite dish is open and it's hard to really feel like, okay, where is my center? And coming back to self is so important. I began to be hyper aware of other people, what they needed, how they felt. And so this can breed codependent tendencies, to be honest. And so that's a big part of healing. But fast forward, when I was 16, I was in a major car accident and I was a passenger in a vehicle. The driver went through a late yellow light. We actually hit a semi-truck head on. So we're very lucky to be alive. He started his left-hand turn early. We went through the light going at about 50 miles an hour. And so it was basically a head-on collision. And I hit the windshield, and most of the damage was to my forehead. I have a large scar running down the center of my forehead, eyelid, my face, and then I had a lot of chronic back pain. That was really what sent me into Reiki. And so after this car accident and many surgeries to repair my forehead in particular, which, by the way, is where your third eye is located, and I really started seeing auras after this incident on a higher level, I did all the advised Western medical modalities.
You did.
So physical therapy for years, the Western doctor approach just did not work. I plateaued. And they kind of said, we don't know what to do with you. This is the best we can do. There was some improvement. And I thought, am I going to be in chronic pain for the rest of my life? I'm so young to have this experience. So I started seeking and I went everywhere. I would try anything. It was very lonely. It was a solo journey. I didn't really have friends and family that were interested or had a reason to seek holistic healing modalities. And, I finally found Reiki. It was a referral from a friend and I was just willing to try anything. I was desperate, if I'm being honest. And so I didn't know what it was. I'm quite open-minded by nature. And I thought, okay, let's try. And immediately it started the pain relief. And I couldn't believe it. I was quite shocked, very grateful. And I will say, though, this is important. Healing is in layers. So when we have trauma, we can't undo it in one session. I was committed to going to my practitioner every month. And I was actually an art teacher. So I have an art degree. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts, painting, fashion design. And I was teaching art at a college level for many years in Detroit, where I'm originally from. And so that's what I thought my path was going to be and always be. And I started doing healings with my practitioner. It was incredibly helpful. And I went for physical pain, but I ended up feeling better emotionally. That was what was notable right away. And I didn't go there for that. It was very exciting. And as I learned and as she taught me about the energy body, I just thought this is just essential for everybody. And I was consistent, and you take one layer off at a time, whether it's a physical trauma, an emotional trauma. Absolutely, there's a huge impact from your family of origin. So our experiences, our conditioning, the behaviors we pick up, especially from parents, that can all be evaluated by Reiki practitioners, and they can see that in the field. And it's so exciting to be able to repattern. When we repattern the chakras, you're actually then automatically repatterning your behavior, how you are in the world energetically. So I took her trainings, maybe, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years into regular healing work with her. And it felt very natural. It was very exciting. And of course, there's the apprehension, like, will I be able to do this? But we're not doing it. You're really learning to become a channel for divine energy. You're a sponge. You're being still and absorbing, which is the feminine receptive. Most of us, this is a huge learning for me, most of us are in our masculine all the time, which means we're just outputting energy constantly. Giving, doing, thinking, loving, supporting, working. And so Reiki taught me how to be still and receive this universal energy that knows what to do for you. It's homeostasis. It knows how to balance you. So we're just channeling that high vibration energy into our bodies, either for ourselves or passing it to another person. It has its own intelligence. It knows where to go and what to do. So you're really the observer of it, and you follow it. So the coolest thing about Reiki, when I do Reiki level 1 and 2 classes, is I tell people there's no pressure on you. There's no pressure. You're not doing it. You are just receiving the high vibrational energy and passing it. And it knows what to do. It knows how to balance and restore. Kind of like if you take a vitamin or a supplement to restore yourself. You don't have to do it. You just take it. And it knows how to fortify the body. So energy healing is the same. There are really two components. We are either fortifying the body with energy, or we are subtracting, removing negative energy that's weighing you down. So it's additive and subtractive. I think maybe the public perception is that Reiki is additive, just sending energy and light into someone's chakras. But really, they need to purge and offload the heaviness that you've experienced. So that's the fundamental mechanics of energy healing. And so when I took the trainings, I never thought I would do this for a living, ever, ever, ever. I thought, I'm doing this for myself. I want to learn how to help myself heal from an injury, but then I understood later, heal from emotional trauma. And it was just so profound. I kept sharing it. I ended up moving to New York, which is a whole story in and of itself, but that was in 2010. And I had been certified for 3 years. I was certified in 2007. And all of a sudden, the universe closed all the doors for teaching. I just couldn't find a job. And it was shocking and confusing. And finally, I realized this is the end of that chapter for you. You're being guided to follow the flow, which was also hard for me. I had my plans I was going to execute. It's like, no, just this is what's next for you. And it just organically started to happen. And I made myself available to treat people, and it just grew on its own. And it was so fulfilling in a way I'd never experienced with any other type of work. I later did shamanic healing training and started to explore what boundaries were. And I had to really learn them for myself first, and then I could teach them to others. And I have such a passion about that, because I say boundaries are prevention for all the healing we seek. If we have strong boundaries, the negative energies aren't getting in. So that's very important to me too. That's basically my story.
Thank you for sharing all that. And it made me think of so many things, my own journey towards finding you as well. It's kind of when I was at the end of my rope, a bit more emotionally. And I think I find a lot of people share in that sentiment, whether it's yoga or Reiki or breath work or all these different natural healing modalities that maybe, depending on when you grew up, if you're growing up now, maybe there's less of a stigma, but when we were growing up, certainly was not something that people were suggesting. And it's something that popped into my field. I couldn't even tell you why or when. Probably when I was in acting school, being asked to start to just question all your curiosities. Why do you believe this? Why do you like this? Why do you dislike this? Just starting to dig into the why behind everything, and the encouragement to follow anything you're curious about. If you do it once and you hate it, okay, leave it behind. But this idea of opening yourself up to all the different curiosities that fill you up, because acting is not the only thing in the world. And to be an interesting artist or actor, I'm sure you know, you need to experience life. You need to really be in it. You can't just sit behind your easel or behind your piano or on your stage and just constantly be in the practice. You also have to go and experience relationships and heartbreak and joy and all the things. And I was in the midst of, you know, my grief journey and losing my dad and my grandfathers and my mentor. And I went to a Reiki practitioner, and pretty quickly she was like, you need more help than I can give you. She was like, you need a shamanic practitioner. I'm not a shamanic practitioner. She's like, you're understanding it really well and you're taking to it well, but you need someone who could just go a little deeper with you. And that's how I found you. And I also so deeply relate to what you were saying with healing has layers, and the way that, which I still struggle with, allowing life to unfold when you have a plan for yourself and something else starts to open up. I think it's easy for me to watch you do it and lean into it so well because you've built up that trust over many years with your intuition, your guide, source. But I'm sure you had your own periods of questioning everything, wondering, how could you possibly make it work? So, and I think it's important for people to hear that just because we do this work doesn't mean that sometimes, you know, we were even talking about this the other night, like, okay, this is what you want me to do. Like, if this is really what you want me to do, the surrender bit of it. And I think I even have folks that come to my classes, especially my breathwork class, they'll come and have a really powerful, cathartic experience. And then they'll come again and they're like, oh, it was different this time. And I'm like, you know, it's the journey of, it's not, you know, just from A to B. You're going to go from A to F, back to A to B, like to a letter you didn't even know existed. So I think it's so important when whether you're just starting this journey, whether you're deep in it, to remember that it is not linear and there's so much that can unfold in possibility. And I also think, whether you like to admit it or not, you're the reason why I do any of what I do today. Even though you're so good at surrendering and being in your feminine of making space, you're also very good at gently asserting in terms of when you see something in someone. I very much pushed back for a long time with you. I was like, no. I just want to receive. I don't need to do it. And you would take it with stride, and then the next time bring it up again. You wore me down in a way that in a way that I didn't realize. Much like Reiki, when you're on the table, there's so much coming up in the body. There's, you know, things that are coming up from the past, the present, emotions, the brain is going. And I often, coming back from your apartment in Fort Greene when you lived in Brooklyn, it wouldn't be till I was on the train that it would fully start to sink in and integrate. And I always say Reiki's like a warm blanket. It takes the time to kind of seep in, and you'll remember people want that immediate gratification. They want that one session,
Yes.
and they want things to change immediately, and it can, but more often than not, anything worthwhile in like any relationship or career or endeavor, like there's many phases to this process.
Absolutely. And you know, as a practitioner, but as a human, the hardest thing we're up against is resistance. So my own resistance to my process, or if I'm working with a client, their resistance, which you were kind of referencing, and understanding that that's normal and having compassion for it and not taking it personally and not getting frustrated. You know, that's what the term growth edge means. And practitioners, we have an obligation. It's really not coming from my opinion as much. I have to suspend that, and I'm listening to divine information and passing that forward, which supersedes my mind. So I think one of the most important things about being a practitioner, being a human, is understanding your mind is limited and divine information is so expansive if we're open to hearing it and receiving it, which I teach in a Reiki level 1 class. How do we channel divine energy, whether it's to heal or to hear advice? And so whatever I'm hearing, and by the way, that took me many years to trust my hearing and to, become versed, but I am committed to sharing, if it's appropriate, if it's the right time, what I'm hearing. And it can be very confronting because the core of healing is really about the truth. And the truth can be hard to hear, can be intimidating. We can resist that. And so we're really looking for what is best for our highest goods, which is very different than what the ego wants or coming from fear, quite frankly. So part of the healing journey is learning to identify, when is my mind coming from fear about, for instance, decision-making? Really, we want to come from the opposite energy, love, creativity, your divine path. And so if we develop this relationship to the divine, the source of all love, all positivity, all creativity. And for me, I developed that through the practice of Reiki. It's not the only way, but I'm very grateful that Reiki taught me this divine connection. And then my job is to trust. And that's hard. That takes time too. That's a practice. So the mind gets in the way. We have our desires, our earthly desires. We think we know what's best. We're executing the plan. And it is a process sometimes of letting go and checking in with your intuition, with the divine, learning to get confident in that, saying, is this choice, is this path for my highest good? And sometimes there are a lot of unknowns in that. And the unknown is scary for a lot of people. That's where control comes in, right? We're really grasping at control. If you have a plan, you control it. And so for me, there was a lot of work of letting go of my plans in some circumstances when it was appropriate and saying, okay, I'm embracing the unknown. And Reiki and energy healing, this was not my plan. And I'm so grateful for it. And I had to kind of learn to follow flow, what was opening naturally, what felt right, versus gripping and hanging on to my plans, my ideas, and really checking myself, are some of these things coming from fear? If I'm being really honest, I will always be an artist and love teaching art, but, I felt like I had done everything I could really do. I felt like I wasn't really learning anything new at a certain point. I felt like I could help people more in a different way. And it was hard to let go of that. So again, that truth and honesty component. Am I telling myself the truth, or am I just clutching and hanging on? Because teaching art was familiar to me. I felt confident that I knew how to do it. I had done it for a decade. And so it was great to challenge that, and we're going to get challenged to what? Grow and evolve. So I want to encourage people to embrace that. You're going to be uncomfortable. Actually, it's always what I say when I teach people setting boundaries. You're always going to be uncomfortable. 9 times out of 10, getting a boundary out of your mouth to another person, especially if they're important to you. And that is a practice too, getting uncomfortable. I'm a huge supporter of people noticing I'm just staying in the comfort zone. And there's a time and a place to stay, but there are chapters of our lives that we can feel where we know inherently, I really need to step out.
I love that you bring up this willingness to be uncomfortable. I've been saying that a lot lately. I find myself, especially in my breathwork class, because it's a bit more activating than maybe just a Reiki session. Again, there were plenty of times where I would leave your apartment and have a revelation and start crying on the train. So it's not that Reiki can't take you to those same depths. Just like all these modalities, I like to say they all get you to the same place. You just take a different avenue or street to get there.
Yes.
But I've been saying often lately, when people after my class will say, that was hard, or I felt really uncomfortable. And I try to use this mantra, discomfort isn't always a sign that something's wrong. It's usually just a sign that you're doing something new or that something's new.
Yes.
And I think we've been so conditioned now. Thank goodness we're more aware than ever, and there's a lot of talk, discussion, practices to bring awareness to the body, to our habits, to our boundaries or lack thereof. But it also, sometimes we overcorrect. And one of my previous guests even said, she's like, I actually don't think our comfort zone is comfortable at all. Keeps us stagnant. It keeps us complacent. And of course, like you always say, the wisdom of appropriateness, there's always a time to introduce that to people and when they're ready to really hear that. But I have to think of it often. In the last few years, I've even this practice with myself. Okay, how am I contributing to my own suffering? Like, how am I creating the suffering that I'm living in? And sometimes it's for someone like me who loves to take the blame for everything that's wrong in my life. It is appropriate for me to say, no, this is, yes, I allowed this other person in my space, but that wasn't the wrong decision. It is what it is. But this idea that we've started to land in that only where we feel comfortable and safe all the time. Is it really safety or is it just your habit?
Yes, such good points. I'd like to say two things on that I think are really important. So I always say that doing healing work or interpersonal work, it's for the brave, because we are confronting what's not working in our lives. We're confronting our shadow side. We're confronting our habits and patterns that aren't high vibration. People are really brave when they take that on. And the other thing that I'll say about it is, of course, it's for us. So we reap a benefit. But I was just saying this to a client the other day. Whenever you do interpersonal work and you change, it's for everyone. Right. That is for all of the relationships you have, your friends, your family, your partner, your children, your coworkers. Everyone benefits from you healing. This vibration is sent out. They're not grappling with our low vibration selves, quite frankly. So let that be a motivation too. The other thing I'll say, connected to what you were just mentioning, I've realized in the last few years, an important place to look is where we feel out of balance, connected to my favorite phrase, wisdom of appropriateness, which I invented for myself to kind of check myself. Is this appropriate? It all the
time. I quote you. I say, as my teacher Kari always says, the wisdom of appropriateness.
Right, because I admittedly used to be someone who looked for the way. If I can just know the way, like life is a math equation, then I can always do it this way, and it guarantees me this certain result, which again is control. And life doesn't work that way. So there was a big process for me just accepting this is not how life works. So instead, I graduated to wisdom of appropriateness. So I'm always asking myself, is this way of being or approach or choice appropriate? And then there's a timing level, which is even more interesting. That came later too. I don't know why I was never paying attention to timing, probably because I want everything to happen now. And so is this appropriate, right? And then should I do this now? Because if we do things prematurely, the analogy I always give is, and it's so funny because I'm a terrible cook, but if you're in the kitchen, you're making something and you're cooking a pie and you take it out too early, you have raw dough. So sometimes we have to be mindful of our timing, other people's timing, the timing to say something and communicate in a relationship. That's part of the healing journey as well, that discernment. And understanding we have to be flexible. Sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes it's not. And I think that's a very kind of high level perception when you get to that place. The other thing about balance is looking at where am I out of balance connected to this whole conversation. So if you are someone that gives too much, you notice I'm out of balance that way and I have to find my center. I have to pull back. But there are other people that are closed and not open and not giving enough, and they're out of balance in the other way. So instead of we should be a certain way, we should do certain things inside of high vibration living. It's really like, okay, where am I personally out of balance with my communication, with my choices, with my habits, whatever that is? And then trying to bring yourself back. And it's different for different people because we're on different ends of the spectrum.
Thank you for sharing all that. I have many thoughts, but we'll start with, as always, we could talk forever. I have many thoughts. And I think also this idea of the way, I know I play this game with myself because I do this work, because I'm a Reiki practitioner and breathwork facilitator, that I should know better when I make a mistake or I try something or I open up. And, for me, vulnerability has always been all my Capricorn placements. It's been a journey, and part of a big lesson in my life is to feel safe expressing and feeling and being vulnerable. And I think, again, this idea of when it goes back to what we were talking about even earlier, that we want to do one session and everything be solved. And we want to have a hard conversation that first time and have it be solved. And this idea that we abandon, a lot of us, and I see it happen not just with myself, but in general, we try something and it doesn't work out, and we think because our ego or our sense of control, we just want to throw the whole thing away and never do it again and never try it again. We got heartbroken. We're never going to do it again. We didn't get that job. We're never going to put ourselves out there again. And, I'm not trying to make light of it, because a lot of people really do allow that to stop them from going after the next. If they really want a healthy, loving relationship, they get their heart broken, and then it stops them from ever putting themselves out there again, or they don't get the job they wanted, or an opportunity doesn't work out. And the way we, again, contribute to our own suffering and put these boundaries on ourselves, these unhealthy boundaries of like what's possible, and that we're meant to be perfect and not make mistakes, and that we forget that we're here to learn. And actually, that's how we grow, by maybe misjudging the timing and learning from that and making a different choice the next time with the information we receive.
Mistakes are a part of existence, and I will fully admit my perfectionist self has had tremendous challenges with this. But if we understand that mistakes are inevitable, but we have a commitment, again, healing is change, right? The goal is to say, what did I learn from this? And I have a commitment to myself to show up differently next time, or at least try. And this is the repatterning process. But this circles back to energy healing and why I think it's so important. Reiki helps us repattern, so you're not white knuckling it and trying so hard to be different. So if you work with an energy healer that knows how to clear and repattern the energy body, you have a head start. You're not just trying to criticize yourself, shame yourself, and force yourself into something new in terms of pattern of behavior. The energy healing can assist in the organic change, if that makes sense.
It does. And when you talk about repatterning and boundaries, we've talked about how you came to Reiki, what it means to you, how to work with it a little bit, why it's so important. I'd love to hear a little bit about, I think, definitely for me, the work you've helped me do with repatterning and boundaries has been most apparent with my family. And when we talk about change, and like you mentioned a few minutes ago, I don't want to skip over this idea that when people are used to us, essentially, they're used to us behaving, being, acting one way, and we start to change. And that can have such a positive effect on the world around you. Jane Fonda says, don't be a product of your environment, make your environment a product of you. And I'd love to hear about your journey with, especially coming from the Midwest, Detroit area, doing all this work, definitely more taboo when we were getting into it. How has your work been challenging to come up in those ways? How has it been an opportunity to repattern, to set boundaries, and how has it transformed your relationships in a healthy way?
Well, I'm extremely passionate about this because I will tell you, of all the people that I've treated over 18 years, The number one concern that people walk into in a Reiki session with a Reiki session is some kind of concern about another person and their impact. It's a relationship. Our relationships affect us so much. And that's where boundaries come in. So, for me personally, I had to really confront that I didn't know how to set them. It's really a communication skill. It is not spiritual. It is not holistic. It is a communication skill. It is a life skill. And that I got from doing this work, that most adults do not have this life skill. It was not taught to us. Either we did not have good modeling very often in the family system. And look, did our parents learn healthy boundaries from their parents, so on and so forth? Probably not. Does school teach us how to operate in relationships in a healthy way and communicate? No. Even probably people that are communication majors don't learn these things. So it's just missing, profoundly missing. And in 2013 was when I really took it on for myself. I had to admit that I was not effective in my communication with changing behavior that was problematic in my relationships with nuclear family. And but as we know from traditional therapy, so much stems from these relationships. And so I just encourage people to start, believe it or not, anywhere you need boundaries, start there, but definitely with your family. It is kind of the apex. It is kind of like the highest peak of the mountain. If you can successfully have boundaries with parents, siblings, other close family members, it's unbelievable how your whole life changes in terms of what you attract and manifest, because you will replay it over and over again. Whatever you grew up with, it will find its way back to you. So I had to confront myself. I am not affected with changing behavior that doesn't work for me. And it's getting to a point where it's not tolerable, not feasible, extremely painful. And I really, truly, honestly, I didn't read books. No one taught me. I sat with myself. I got a pen and paper out and I wrote everything that I did that didn't work. I wrote all my failures. Okay, when I communicate this way, if I guilt trip, if I cold shoulder, if I hyperanalyze someone and over explain my point of view to try to get you to change your behavior, if we are to tears, all the things. And we've seen these chosen methods from other people. They're very familiar. And I had to really be with, okay, why didn't they work? What result did I get? I may have gotten some short-term change, but nothing really changed long-term with the way people were, speaking to me or treating me or choosing in regards to our relationship that had a great impact. So it was really addressing my failures first and analyzing, okay, why did XYZ not work? And through that analysis, I just got very determined. I was very motivated to be able to go and visit my family and, quite frankly, have it be somewhat, smooth and joyous. And what do we have to do to create that? And it's complex because there are certain circumstances where you can't, even with high level boundary setting, depends on people's level of trauma and their willingness, what they're able to do or not able to do. But that all gets revealed when you set a boundary. The cards kind of fall with what people are willing to do and if they're willing to change or not. And then that gives you information about how you should navigate that relationship. Should I be in it at all? Should I spend less time? What should I do? So I created my own method, which I've been teaching since 2013, and I am doing one-on-ones always, one-on-one sessions to teach my method, but I'm motivated to make a digital course that's in the near future so people can really understand this world of boundaries, because it's so, so important to what? Your peace, your fulfillment in your relationships of all kinds. You will have a high level of stress if you do not have strong boundaries. So that's very important to me. And then you will need less healing if you have your boundaries in place and intact. And that's magical too. You won't be going to the practitioner all the time, to kind of clean you off after an exchange with someone that was problematic. So I created a method. I used it, of course, with my own family. And I will be completely honest with you. I was shocked. I was shocked that it worked because nothing had worked previously. And so my own life was the trial run. And all of a sudden, I was respected. My needs were met. And there was prevention from a lot of problematic behavior. And so I thought, well, let me just try it with my Reiki practitioners. I'm just going to share. I have no expectation that it would work for their life or their particular situations with a romantic partner, a family, work. And to my surprise, it was all purpose. It did work with other people as long as they were following the steps. And it's not complicated. It's actually not elaborate. It is very specific. And it has to do with preparation, being prepared about what to say, knowing what works for you ahead of time, knowing what doesn't, not, I say, throwing energy darts at people. So one of my goals with boundaries was removing emotional warfare. I know it's a dramatic way to say it, but I'm going to say it. That's what we do to each other. And so when we're upset, frustrated, things aren't working, it's very easy to throw these emotional darts. And I had experienced that growing up. I didn't want to participate in it anymore. So I made sure that my method was, clean, emotionally clean. We're not negatively impacting people. We're not breaking down their self-esteem to try to get them to change by telling them you are fill in the blank, irresponsible, cruel, all the things we say, that we hope will create a change. So I wanted it to be emotionally clean. I wanted it to be effective. I also wanted it to be doable. We have these conversations with people that are like, oh, let's sit down for an hour and talk about all of our problems, and we're exhausted and we don't even know where we started at the beginning, and it doesn't really get anywhere when we have the talk with people. And so that's quite frankly too long. I got that a boundary needed to be concise to be effective and not overwhelm someone. I got that it had to be clean. I got that it had to have a consequence. And a lot of us are scared of having consequences, not out of punishing people. That's tricky too. So again, another emotional dart. But there has to be a consequence because words are just words. They're in one ear and out the other at the end of the day. It's not effective. But we also have to be clear on what we do want. Most of us with boundary setting, it's just some version of no or don't or stop it. And it's just incomplete. So my method has 4 steps. It ensures that we come in with the other person's ears open. It ensures that we are clear and direct and concise instead of, gently stepping around things or being too mild or not really saying what we want. And we're clear on what we need, because if we can't teach people, then we're not going to get that result. A lot of us will leave it up to the other person. Like, well, they're intelligent. They should know how to behave better. They know me. They should know what to do instead. I personally would fall victim to that. I would really think, no, they know. We really have to teach people how to treat us, not in a patronizing way, in a really empowered, loving way. Because at the end of the day, what I get about boundaries is that people want to succeed with you. They really do. If they love you and that relationship is healthy and you're meant to continue that relationship instead of let it go, they want to please us and do right by us. And so there's a way in my method to kind of, promote that energy. And I'll just say lastly, we have to follow through. Boundaries is a lot about following through. You can speak a boundary, and it doesn't mean it's going to work if you are not prepared for the follow through. And I teach people what that is, how to follow through with your consequence, what to say or not say after you've set the boundary, because oftentimes they will push back and you will try to justify it. And that's just a loss of empowerment right there. So I've really been studying it, and I have so many case studies recorded and listening to so many different people's scenarios and where is the boundary needed. And I'm just so excited about it because it really changes people's lives. It certainly changed mine.
And it's definitely changed mine. I'm living proof of your method. And, especially my biggest boundary setting task was with my family. And even, I think I said to you the other night how much my relationship, especially with my mom, has changed just trying to really, I always think of it as, we assume people know how to treat us, and we're not the same person we were when we were born. I'm not even the same person I was 6 months ago. So to expect that everyone can read our minds and give us what we need and we want without being able to verbalize it, communicate it in a healthy way. And absolutely, it's uncomfortable. Absolutely, it ruffled some feathers. Absolutely, it took a little while. But it really did change so much. And also, all of that, and a reminder to folks that boundaries can shift and change, and things will happen in life that will require you to set new ones. And I was kind of in the midst of setting my boundaries originally with my mom when my dad passed away. Her father, my grandfather, passed away just before that. Then my dad's father, my mentor, and it unloaded all of this grief in my life, and I had to kind of double down. And the boundaries aside, I'd love to hear about, again, I think people think when you're a Reiki practitioner and a yoga teacher and you're in this space that when things happen to you, you are above it or can handle it in a different way where you're not emotionally affected or you don't get upset or angry, or well, certainly not me. I don't think people think this, but that we're free from our emotional responses. And I know you've dealt with your fair share of grief and loss as well, and how you balance the work that you do with also really allowing yourself to feel the fullness of all of that pain and loss, and knowing that there is another side to it as well, and that allowing yourself to kind of experience, really allow yourself to feel the thing helps you move through it, helps you create a new reality to keep going, all of the things that come with it.
Absolutely. You made so many good points. Just on the first one, practitioners that treat people, yes, we've worked hard to, I say, grow your tool belt, right, of resources to help yourself. But you always have your next challenge. There's always the next level, and that's going to be difficult. And that's just for everybody, so there's always going to be, I call them earth classes, there's always going to be calculus ahead of you to take. It never stops. And so practitioners too have calculus in front of them. And that's why we're down here. But with grief, it's really interesting. There's a direct correlation. What I've noticed is that the two reasons people are most resistant to setting boundaries, even if you teach them the method, they got it. Okay, I can imagine verbalizing this to someone. It is having emotional strain with somebody or not being liked. They kind of fall in the same category. But the second one is a fear of loss. And that directly connects to grief. And it's so human to be terrified of grief and that process. And in my opinion, it's another area where we need to learn skills. So grief comes in so many forms, not just when someone passes away. We might grieve a relationship that didn't go the way we wanted it to. We might grieve a career path that didn't turn out how we wanted to. It goes on and on, what we have to let go of. And so I think it's really important for people to find tools and have a support system, whatever kind of practitioner or coach or therapist or healer. So okay, I might have to face potential loss if someone doesn't honor my boundaries. And I love myself enough to hold my boundaries and step into that. I always say, let the cards fall. When you set a boundary, it is scary because you have to let the cards fall and see if they'll honor it or not. And then feeling like, okay, I have some skills or support system to deal with grief if there is indeed loss. And loss could look like a relationship being less close because someone won't, treat you in a respectful way or honor what you need. Or it might be like the complete exit of someone out of your life, which is painful. So I didn't think that I would be dealing with grief so much when I started teaching boundaries, if that makes sense, and the general fear of loss, which we all have. But really, the benefit of boundaries is so exciting when you have that peace and fulfillment. And if someone isn't the right match for you now in your life and that season needs to come to completion, which the concept of seasons was so helpful for me alone. I fully admit how I work this thinking, well, I love you and you're going to be here forever with me. You know, I didn't see seasons in friendships or seasons in, other capacities. So it's this acceptance of that the nature of life is that we have seasons, we have chapters, and we can't control when things start and end always. And it's scary and frustrating. And, oftentimes we have sadness around that. But if you are looking at it from that bird's eye view perspective, you're much more likely to step into something and then just allow those cards to fall. Whoever is a vibrational match for you, who's going to honor, respect you, love you, and value you, and meet your needs and be able, my favorite word is able. Are they able or not able? It's such an important evaluation because we look at people's potential. We want it to be what we want it to be. But I can't, support people enough. It's that connecting to the truth, healing requires truth. Is someone able or not able to fill in the blank? Meet your needs? No. And the operative word is now, because you can wait forever. And so this is the self-love, self-care component of healing and having, quite frankly, that standard. And that connects to self-love. So this is what we practice when we step into the world of boundaries. It's not easy and you're going to have resistance, but it's, in my opinion and my experience, one of the most important things we could ever take on.
And you keep throughout our conversation using this word practice in many different forms. And I think that's something you've instilled in me so much, this idea that I can't have just done Reiki 1 with you, however many years ago I did, right? 7, and then never, you really drove home the importance of working on myself first every day for 30 days. And this idea of practicing what we preach, and not just, we've said it before, or I've said it in this conversation, people expect to come to a session and be healed. And it's like no one picks up a basketball and expects to be Kobe Bryant. No one picks up a guitar and expects to be Prince. There's these other realms of the world where people understand it is a practice. It is putting in the time and the effort and the care and the commitment. And then for some reason, there's these other avenues where we just want it to happen overnight. And I think something I'm even taking away from this conversation is, yes, Reiki is so magical, and these spiritual practices do have this magical, intuitive element to them. But more than anything, or in addition to that, it's your commitment to showing up once a week, every day, once a month. People comment a lot about, like, you're getting another massage, you're going to another class, you're doing another thing. I'm like, I'm putting out a lot of energy all the time.
Yeah.
I need to make sure. And also, what kind of person am I? It's like if I was a financial accountant and I didn't save or know how to invest money, but was doing it for other people. It's like if I'm telling people to come to my breathwork class regularly or once a week if they can, or to do sessions with me every 4 weeks, who would I be if I was not doing the same thing? So this idea of seeing this healing work as a practice, I also think makes it so much more attainable for people and takes a little bit of the mystery and the magical part of it out of it.
Great point. And I really think, as we know about anything, not just interpersonal work, consistency is what creates a result. It really is the consistency. And that doesn't mean that you have to be overwhelmed and think, oh, I have to meditate for an hour a day and I have to, do all these extensive trainings. No, it can be a small chunk of time. But if you're consistent, all of a sudden change inevitably will occur. So I just really want to support people in stepping in. And this is connected again to what I was saying at the beginning with you, bringing your energy back to yourself. Self-care is at the core of healing. And what does that even mean? Were we taught that? Did we have examples of that? And what is it for you? Because what it is for you is not what it is for someone else. We're so unique fundamentally in our constitutions. So when I do sessions with people, I talk a lot about finding your match. What is your match in life? Whether it's your interpersonal practice, whether it's your type of exercise, whether it's your home and what city works for you to live in. We're really trying to choose our matches. And so it's a really interesting place to look inside of healing is, why am I choosing a low percentage match is how I say it. What is there for me? Why do I keep choosing these things? If you can identify it and a practitioner can help and you repattern that, you're more likely to choose matches, if that makes sense. And that's part of the healing journey and self-care.
Yeah. I love that idea of self-care and healing work as self-care too. And unfortunately, with the way things are, we think of it as a luxury, and it is, but I wish it was so much more an integrated part of, energy is everything. And I was even teaching a Reiki class the other afternoon, and I said, everyone knows what energy feels like. Nobody knows what you need more than you do. There's nothing that I can give you that you can't give yourself. And I think that's also why I was so drawn to you, not just as a practitioner, but also a teacher, because your desire to really empower everyone. You said something to me really early on when we started working together, that in a perfect world, your clients would not see you for the rest of their life. If they do, if they want to, you're happy to have them, but you would love to work with clients that are dedicated to not just leaving your session and then not thinking about what came up for the next 4 weeks until they come back, but someone who's dedicated to sitting with what you shared, meditating on it, working with it, whatever sort of somatic body practice that helps them, bringing it into their relationships. And I think that's why, as a teacher, I cherish you so much, because you really are so dedicated to not just the healing bit, but the empowerment bit. It means so much to you, and people really being able to live life exactly as they desire, which I think is so important.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I listening to you, it brings me to think about, in particular, the solar plexus chakra, which is your empowerment, your joy, your self-worth, your value. Do I value myself enough to make time to nourish myself, whether that's, exercise or a Reiki session or, being in nature, whatever that matches for you. It's prioritizing yourself in a very overwhelming, overstimulating world that we live in, and probably with relationships that have high demand. So boundaries can be with other people, but there are boundaries with yourself. There's really two categories of boundaries too. So it's saying no. How do I make space for myself without feeling guilt or other negative emotions? And that in itself is a practice. It's going to be awkward at first, but it's so important. And your solar plexus connects to your personal sovereignty. And for me, the last few years in particular for myself, but especially with working with clients, that seems to be a theme. I feel like the universe, more than anything, as I observe, is really pushing us towards looking at, where am I not sovereign? This is, am I steering my own ship, running my own life, following my feelings? I think interpersonal work usually ends up finding its way to the fact that the mind is wonderful. It's an amazing tool. We need it. It's just not your only tool in your toolkit. We have to focus on feeling. Reiki really helped me use my feeling as a compass, not the mind who justifies and rationalizes and overthinks and hears someone else's opinion and goes with that. No. How does this feel in my body? How does this feel towards me when this energy is coming in, whether it's from a person, a place, an activity? So I want to support people in using that as a valid compass too. I teach many things in a Reiki level 1 class, teach you how to heal yourself through the chakra system, but I really want to support people to use feeling as a compass.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of support, we talked so much about Reiki and boundaries and just getting into all the work that you do, and in return now I do as well, from working with you and having you as my teacher. But again, I think there's so much value in not simplifying it, but making it relatable. And for someone who maybe doesn't know where to start or feels they come from a family, a community, an environment that, my family certainly did for a long period of time, and that held me back from indulging these curiosities. What would you say to someone who is maybe interested in starting to receive Reiki, or maybe they've received a few sessions, they're looking to train and become a teacher? Any advice you have for people looking to jump into this practice?
I am thinking of a client who ended up being one of the only students who became a Reiki Master. I've trained 4 Reiki Masters. They're high-level requirements. And he told me that the first time we met, I was doing a lecture about Reiki, and he attended the lecture. And, he had a nutrition degree, very science-based degree. He came up and sweetest person, but he said, I want to be really honest. I cannot conceive of how this actually works. You're not touching someone with your hands. Like, how does this transfer? I don't get it. And that's so legitimate. And I thought, how do I, explain this to him? And I found myself at the point where I just looked at him and I said, I just support you being open to having a new experience. And you decide for yourself. Again, it's a match or it's not a match. It's kind of like, you can describe what it's like to fly in an airplane to somebody. It's not the same as being on an airplane for the first time. In life, if it feels right and it's safe, I always say safety first. It's a big thing I work on with people because a lot of healing connects to trauma and we didn't feel safe and we're repatterning ourselves to choose safety. But, I think it's so important to have an experience and determine for yourself. Trust yourself. Yes, this feels right for me. No, this didn't feel right for me. It landed, it didn't land. Oh, I feel safe and connected to that practitioner. It feels like something I'm drawn to, or nope, something felt off in my gut. Don't follow through. So I don't think everything is for everyone. Again, because I fundamentally think we're so unique. And I start with, we have unique constitutions. We're not all the same. It doesn't, we can't really approach life with one size fits all anything. I do not subscribe to that. But I think if you're just open to having an experience, that's all you need. You will know immediately. Yes, I felt different. And that's what he said. He said, I felt a change and I continued to go. And it was years later that he became a master. So that's the story I'm thinking of to share.
Thank you for sharing that. And I found Kari from a Google search. I found Kari. I Googled shamanic practitioners NYC because I had already been working with a Reiki practitioner here in Hoboken where I live, and she's now a shamanic practitioner years later. She was on the path. She just very much in integrity with the practice, knew she couldn't do, and didn't try to, which I appreciate because there's a lot of people out there, or anyone listening, who say they could do it and they certainly can't. But I found Kari off a Google search, and like all my best Google searches, acting school, I had a phone call with her, and that was that. So that trust bit definitely comes into play, and not everyone has. I had been through acting school, so I was in that space of learning how to be with my feelings a little bit more and trust the feeling. I certainly still come up against that, but all you need to do is trust. And it's like anything in life, you need, just because you go on one date or go to one therapy session, I think sometimes, again, it doesn't work and people want to just get rid of it. But sometimes it takes a little while to find the person that's an energetic match for you. And I'm so grateful that you were my energetic match.
No, I'm so grateful too. I just think the world of you. I know you know that. I think you're such a grounded and integrity, authentic person. It's rare. So it's just been a joy to work with you and a joy to be here. And I'll just say one more thing so people, this may or may not be a match for them. With shamanic healing, my version is not with plant medicine, just to make that distinction. But, I was certified in shamanic healing in 2009. And so I've been doing that 16 years. And that focuses more on soul recovery, just so people have a general understanding of how Reiki is different than shamanic healing. Reiki essentially cleans, restores, and repatterns what energy is currently with you. You're this egg of light, you have an energy field. Shamanic healing is when a practitioner retrieves energy that you lost from your field due to trauma, which could be mental, emotional, sexual, physical. Actually, it could happen in this lifetime or past lifetimes. I appreciate that. That might not be what everyone is open to, but I am someone by nature who wants to look everywhere for the root cause of suffering. And so I did discover that, yes, the root cause sometimes is not even in this lifetime. You're still carrying it in your body. And if we offload that, you have just tremendous change. So we want complete healing, not partial healing. We have to look at all layers of what's causing the discomfort. And when we lose soul energy, it's kind of like a collision. So if you had two rocks and you smashed them together, they collided and a chip of one of the rocks flew off. You can imagine soul loss to be that. I've lost a fundamental part of my energy body. It's been damaged. And I came in with that energy. It's my energy that I need to feel whole and complete, which connects to the solar plexus empowerment. You can't be fully empowered if you don't have you back to you. And so sometimes we have experiences when we're very young, when we're middle-aged, when we're teenagers, that were so impactful that we lost energy. And that could either be because the experience was so intense, we say like a piece flipped off, like we would really just couldn't cope. But usually it's from two other potential issues. Either we give ourselves away. We are giving our energy away in inappropriate ways all the time to other people. So we might try to save and fix them and give that energy away. We might try to people please and give that energy away. We might be, in an abusive situation and you try to appease someone and you give it away. But you can only imagine how empowering that is to reclaim that energy back to yourself and then learn to stop that habit of giving oneself away. The other scenario is when people take our energy, and that's more complex. There's lots of different ways that can happen. But, the main way is that they are wounded or have unresolved trauma within themselves. And so they feel the need to take from others. It's almost like you feel like your fridge doesn't have any food and you need to take to sustain yourself. So it's quite common. Again, we all have unresolved trauma. And so if someone took our energy intentionally or unintentionally, that's where it gets really interesting. Some people know they're hurting you or taking from you. Some people are not doing it on purpose. It's more subconscious. An exhausted parent that's, taking some joy or life energy from a child because they're overworked. I mean, something as simple as that, you can lose energy from. Energy can be taken. And you're not trying to hurt someone, but regardless, there's a deep impact. It's compensation, if that makes sense. Someone is compensating and they need you. And so that's why I say healing is for everybody. Like I said that earlier, you can imagine if you are on your journey of reclaiming you back to you, getting your energy pieces back, your soul pieces, then you don't have to take from others. And it stops these cycles in relationships that are so toxic and so draining. And I love doing that work with people too. It changed my life and it was done for me.
I mean, it changed my life as well. Thank you for touching on that. And it makes me think about how now, I'm sure you've seen the studies and seen some of the books, like It Didn't Start With You, or all these things that are coming out in the more science, psychology lens of epigenetics and the trauma that we store in the body generationally. And Reiki and shamanic healing have been around for generations and centuries. So it's find the way it resonates with you, and then also explore, to anyone listening, if you're more the science route, pick up some of those books, read some of those books, see the case studies, and then understand it's not just the tissues, but it's also the energetic energy where you can actually work with it, not just through talk therapy, which has been such a powerful practice for me. I also need the integration of this other work. I can't just do one or the other. I need them both. And it's so empowering and funny to see all of these studies coming out, because it's like, well, people have been doing this for a long, long, long time. This isn't new. It's just coming to light in a different, more science-focused way, which is incredible. But, especially Native peoples, they have been doing this forever. So it's nice to remember that it's all under the same scope and that it's finally getting its time in the sun a little bit.
I love it. And it does, again, it always goes back to boundaries. It circles back to boundaries because if you really look at the core mechanics of soul loss, we are not having boundaries with ourselves when we take from others. And then we're not having boundaries with other people when we let them take from us. So we're trying to shift and change that way of being that's quite frankly normal to a lot of people. And it's probably what you saw growing up as well.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we're just like scratching the surface of all the things that we could talk about. I'll have to have you on for a more shamanic practitioner, shamanic session focused podcast, as well as more about kind of ways that you can practically connect with the divine. I think we also complicate that as well. And you've taught me more than anyone that all you need to do is practice and ask for what you want and what you need.
It is. It's so simple at its core. It's so simple. We don't know what to do. It's so foreign to just sit, be still, be receptive, and ask. It's really remarkable. And you know what else? It's free.
And we love free.
Yes. You don't need to spend extraordinary amounts of money on your healing if you learn healing methods on how to heal yourself. And you learn this energetic connection with divine energy, which is the most fortifying.
It really is. I feel so lucky and grateful that you were able to make time to do this with me. And I can't wait to eventually have you back to get into all of those things with your shamanic sessions, with intuition and connecting with the divine, and just all the wealth of knowledge and wisdom you share with us all. Thank you so much for your time, Kari.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you, Kari, again for being on this episode. I know I thanked you many times. And really, the thank yous are not enough for how you've changed my life. I wouldn't be here today without you. And if you're wondering how to work with Kari, I am the put-on princess. I would never not let you work with her, even if that means you book her up, which you absolutely should. She's already pretty booked, though. I will include all of Kari's information in the show notes. I'm so excited for her Healthy Boundaries course that she's going to be releasing sometime in the near future. And again, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you found this information grounding, valuable, and I hope it just demystified and simplified some things about Reiki for you. It is so magical, but it is so relatable, and no one knows what you need better than you. No one knows your energy better than you. And when you know that and understand that and realize that, as Kari has done for me, all of this healing work, whether it's Reiki, breath work, yoga, all of it is so much more accessible and empowering. So thank you for listening. I can't wait to breathe in and scream out with you next time.